Let's turn our attention to something that's sitting right in front of us. That's the issue of foreign aid to Nigeria as a country. The United States, for example, believes strongly that there is need to continue to give aid to Nigeria, especially in the area of fighting terrorism, fighting insurgency. And the U.S. also believes that Nigeria, being an ally, especially being the most populous black nation and being a strategic partner in Africa as a continent, there's no better thing to do than to continue to give that kind of support. But for many years, Nigeria has received aid from several countries. Can we account for all of this aid? Have we been able to judiciously deploy this aid in such a way that we can put a finger on substantial, tangible developmental achievements recorded over time? I'm joined by Destiny Owobu, who is a brilliant economist and statistician. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And next to him is a very eloquent and fiery public affairs commentator, Bishop Austin Igbasa. We are grateful to have you on the program. Great. I want to begin with Destiny so you can help us create a context for this discussion we're going to have. There must be a reason countries are giving aid, as it were.
Of course.
How do we get to that point? What are the circumstances that necessitate being awarded, as it were, aid?
First of all, poverty anywhere is a threat to security everywhere.
Okay.
And so it's a generally accepted norm in international finance that to prevent people from going to poverty, the cost of poverty and the cost of preventing poverty, if you put them side by side, the cost of poverty is higher.
Okay.
Okay, so poverty is a security issue. So before people get into poverty and its attendant consequences, most countries believe that it is strategic, it is economical to try and nip it in the bud before poverty comes. And so they are willing to part away some of their funds, like into the future, which looks more like try to reduce the poverty before it becomes a problem.
Okay.
So there's economic sense in it, in investing forward, trying to nip poverty in the bud before it comes, and then the problems of migration, for instance, from Africa to Europe, problems of dislocation, insecurity, terrorism can be traced to poverty. And so it makes economic sense, it is brilliant, it is strategic to send funds to solve these problems before they become bigger problems.
Okay, I was asking that question because we've had people who vehemently criticize the idea of aid. They say countries who receive aid usually go cap in hand. In other words, they beg to be given aid. Any sense in that?
Yes, there is some sense. You know, what do you think about it? It's common sense. When you go to Ring Road and you see a lot of people on the streets begging, people can become begging dependent, and that's the problem.
Okay.
You know, they can become begging dependent. Like economists would say, if you are 20, you should be a socialist.
Okay.
But when you are 40, you should be a capitalist. At 40, what that means is this: you expect children to be dependent on their parents, but you don't expect adults to be dependent on their parents. The same thing. Begging is a primordial way of subsistence, of living. Okay, so it doesn't really bring out the best potential in people. So a country that depends on aid will not grow. It's a sign of immaturity, economic immaturity, for a country to be heavily dependent on aid. What we should expect is that a child should depend on the parents. After some time, the parents should depend on the child. A country should grow from dependence to independence. Okay. And aid breaks that cycle. Aid allows you, because aid is what we call, it's like an opium. When you get foreign aid, you get addicted to it. And then when you become dependent on drugs to live, then that's what we call drug abuse.
Okay.
So debt can be abused, aid can be abused. Aid is supposed to be a palliative, something that's supposed to solve a problem. It's a stopgap measure. It's not a long-term solution to a problem.
So in our case, what does it become? Stopgap or long-term?
It's not becoming long-term. It's now a disease, so to speak, because we not depend on it. It's supposed to be a stopgap measure to handle a problem, an ad hoc solution to a major problem. Why do we borrow in the first place? Why do we receive these aids? Because we don't have the capacity to generate income. And so the long-term problem is developing capacity to generate income and wealth so that we can even give aid to other countries who need it.
Okay.
Now, but when we now begin to say foreign aid, you know, it's like opening your mouth and allowing people to feed you every day. you are not going to grow healthier.
I'm going to drag.
So that's the
I'm
idea.
going to drag Bishop Igbasa into this right now. I mean, you are a pastor, a proud one at that. I've heard pastors say, for example, that even the Bible says the giver is more blessed than the receiver.
Yeah.
All right. And then, of course, in the larger society, we hear that he who pays the piper dictates the music.
Yeah.
I'm saying that to say that there's the belief, there's a school of thought that countries that give aid are, by all standards, going to influence and even in some cases manipulate the countries to whom the aid is given. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it is basically truth, because you can't be giving to a country and you will not have those who are also giving. They are beyond wanting that country to develop. They also have an interest.
Okay. They have an interest.
Yes, they have a personal interest. That is not a national interest, it's a personal interest.
Personal interest.
Or, and they try to protect that by sending aid. When they send aid, you can't say no. Imagine somebody that you borrow money from, or somebody that buy clothes for you and just call you at night and say, my daughter is getting married tomorrow. You won't say, why did you not tell me 2 weeks ago?
So short notice doesn't matter.
No,
now.
it doesn't matter, because you are the mercy of such an individual. You know you will continually need the person, so he can lay hand on you and say, come and do this for me, and you will not have anything to be able to. And also, when you continue to receive aids, it's like somebody who feels. I give an example of every governor receives security vote at the end of the month. So whatever happens, the man knows that the security vote must come, even though if heaven and earth is going to kiss the ground. It's not an issue. What happens is that this is consistent. It will definitely come. So I can go ahead and do some things, and I know that it's coming. If governors know that there is no security vote coming, people will look inward to generate. They will diversify economy and look at other areas where you see that each state in Nigeria is they can be able to live an independent life economically, because they will look inward and generate income and be able to look at the natural resources they have. But definitely when you continue to receive aids, those who are giving you aid, they definitely dictate the pace and the space at which you move as a nation, because you can't say no to somebody you know definitely you need the person from time to time. And also it cripples the mindset of our leader to be able to live beyond, just like my brother said here. When somebody give you a capital to start a business, you are expected to generate money from that capital and be able to pay your house rent. If the person that give you capital is the person that will also pay your house rent on yearly basis, then which means you will not be able to do anything. You will be at the mercy of such an individual, and your potential will gradually die. You will not be able to even maximize your potential, because you know that there is somebody that is at your beck and call that will be able to sort you out. So I think that to us, the areas I feel nations needed aid. If a country wants to help us as Nigeria, it's like, okay, how many of your security agencies in all these security agencies, we want to train them.
Okay.
We want to train them. It's not about giving us money. We want to train them. We want 2,000 soldiers. We want 2,000 policemen. We want 2,000 SSS. Now send them to us. Don't give us money. We are not giving you money. Bring these guys. We will sponsor them to come to our country.
Help them build capacity.
Build capacity. Now these guys will return back to Nigeria, because of the knowledge that has been given to them and the kind of society where they be taught, they come back again to multiply that effect back to their agencies here in Nigeria. I believe that is the best way you can help someone. It's not about giving fish. When you keep giving fish to someone, you are crippling the capacity of that person. Because when you teach that person, this is net, this is how to throw it, this is the time you need to be in the sea so that you can get fish. You taught the person the rudiment of catching fish. Then you are able, the person is not depending on you for any fish, but because we have enough river and the person needs to just get a net.
Let me use your word now, the fish that you made mention of, I mean, figuratively. Let's move beyond catching fish now and talk about the fish that has been caught. A lot of persons say that in a country where corruption is one big element, government and the people have to grapple with. And of course, that's been the case with Nigeria for many years now. How do you account for aid that comes in? just at the top of the program this morning, I made an allusion to the fact that there have been arguments as to how that we've had situations where monies that came into Nigeria by way of aid had either been misappropriated or stolen outright. It doesn't make sense that you can't create or establish a transparent system, and yet you have money coming through by way of aid. Is it possible to make judicious use of such money?
What happened is that it is a calculated attempt by the government themselves to create those loopholes and leakages for the money that comes in. Because when there is no leakage for those money to escape, how will you need more fund? You need more fund, and that is why you should create a loophole on how the money. We are not using it judiciously. By now, if we have been judiciously using this money, we will not need aid for now. What we have in this country is enough for us to deport white people. God has given us so much that even the white people that are giving us aid, they are envious of us and jealous of us, that God can give so much natural resources to this kind of people. But what happened is about the transparency in disbursement of this money, because most of this money return back to private pockets, and it is a calculated attempt to make it be so that it continuously there will be need for money. Because if a kind of agency is created on the disbursement of this money, and the audit is very clear, and we announce, we ask ourselves, all this money that comes in, how many Nigerians know how much comes in? How many Nigerians know how much what this money was used for? Well, the people that were given contract to do one or two things that this money is meant for, who do they account for? Well, the contractors, where did they come from? Who did the market survey of what they are putting on the table? Where are the people, the set of people that sit down and be able to audit thoroughly what you are giving us as the bill for this contract? Is it the market value at this moment? Who are the people that bid? I think it was designed to be like that, so that if you have money that is transparent coming in and it's transparently disbursed, and there is accountability check and balance for it, there will not be need for more fund. Yeah. I think it is a deliberate attempt to make it like that, so that we will continually need money. We will continue to wait on aids, and the aids go back to private pocket, and personal, what is meant to be for the masses goes into the hand of some few individuals.
I'm going to come back to you again, Bishop Basan, in a bit. But Destiny, let's look at the fact that he had made an allusion to the fact that loopholes are intentionally created just to be able to siphon these monies. Okay. As it were. If these countries that give aid to other countries, to Nigeria in particular, are aware that judicious use is not guaranteed, why do they continue to give aid? I mean, one would have thought by now they've stopped.
Yes, of course. One expects that. But you see, like I told you, the desire to give aid to African countries is taken on emotional grounds, not logical grounds. Okay. First of all, the World Bank, if you read their report a couple of months ago, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. That's the highlight. 93 million Nigerians are poor out of a 201 million. Half the population.
It makes people ask the question of, by what standards do we determine poor?
Yes,
who is poor, really?
Yeah, the poor person, by what standard, is somebody who lives on less than $2 a day. Okay. Okay, less than $2 a day. And it's a universal rate. Okay. And many people are getting to poverty in Nigeria by that standard. $2 is 700 naira. The facts are not, it's easy to ascertain. The average Nigerian lives roughly between 0 to 1,000 naira a day. Don't look at, please, the poverty, you don't look at the southern part of Nigeria. This is the richest part of Nigeria. Edo State, as poor as Edo State. Edo State is the 7th richest state in Nigeria. 7th richest state, this state we are. Now imagine the northern states, Taraba, the Borno and others. The poverty rate in the north is over 70%. Over 70%. That's in the south, where we belong, is about 30 to 40%. So, but you take the average, it's about 50, 60 something percent. Right. So now we may not be able to ascertain that. So, most people are emotional. They'll say, how can they say Nigeria is poor? Nigeria is poor. It doesn't appear to be poor from where they stay. But Nigeria is a very poor country. Poverty is defined according to certain metrics. One, quality of life. The average Nigerian, does he have access to quality health care? How many doctors per patient do we have in this country? How many hospitals per individuals do we have? How many primary schools do we have? I'll give you a standard of an average country and give you that of Nigeria. You understand where these statistics come from. America has over 600,000 secondary schools. Nigeria has just 55,000. America generates over 600,000 megawatts of power. Nigeria generates 4,000 megawatts of power. America spends $60 billion feeding their pets. Nigeria spends $22 billion feeding human beings. Dogs in America, $60 billion to feed dogs and cats. A country, Nigeria, the cost of feeding human beings is just $26 billion. So when you look at it, you see there's serious disparity.
Right.
So these figures are generated not for Nigeria, but for the global world to see where they should spend most of their money into to save humanity. Nigeria has 201 million people. The population of the world is 8 billion people, 7.8 billion people. And then if you do that mathematics, Nigeria is very significant. If there's poverty in Nigeria, it's a threat to the world. And Nigeria is growing at 3% per annum. By 2050, Nigeria will be 300 million people. So if we do not nip poverty in the bud, that means 300 million people will be poor. That is more cross-border crimes, more terrorism, more insecurity for the entire world.
Right.
So when you look at it, the white man, the world bodies, when they try to give aid to Nigeria, they're not looking at just the economics of it, like let's see how they spend it. They want to really solve the poverty problems in Africa, to see how they can solve that. And so if you check the aids that they give to Africa, they normally give conditionalities where you're supposed to spend it. For example, the $2.2 billion they just approved for Nigeria.
That's by the World Bank.
By the World Bank.
Right.
It's intended, you see, it was strategic. One was, first of all, to develop the internet space for young people. Nigeria has 65 million youths, and the internet space, the capabilities is controlled by the youths. So if we are able to educate the youths to take advantage of the internet space, then they can be integrated into the world economy. So it is strategic, it's deliberate. Out of that, half of it, most of it goes to the rural areas, to connect roads, access roads to the rural areas so they can connect to the city. Because most of this poverty, 90% of the poverty is in the rural areas. So it is strategic. If we can fix the roads, build the market systems in the rural areas, perhaps we can take people out of poverty. The other area is in what we call human capital, health. Without health, what can a nation do? So these are the areas, they are strategic. But the problem has always been, what is the process of accountability?
Right.
Good, because it's about, there's what's called good governance. That's why part of that fund too is targeting good governance. One, most people are not aware that there are checks and balances in the laws of this country to ensure that funds are appropriately spent. We have the Freedom of Information Act that says that the government must report on its activities to its citizens every time. That is why all governments must have a website and put the information of inflows and outflows.
Open government
kind of a thing. That's one. Number two, we also have what we call the Procurement Act, which allows government the process of procuring government contracts to be efficient and transparent. So if government wants to buy computers, for instance, it has to show a bid. There are processes. You don't just fix a price. You have to throw a bid, allow people to come and participate in the process. It has to be open and transparent, and we have to give it to the minimum cost. But once these measures are broken,
right,
then anything happens. In a station where you see a budget and then you see 50 computers, they'll now write 500 million. You'll be asking, who did the procurement? Did they follow this process? I buy computers in the market every day. Which market do they buy from? Are they buying from a different market? Or you want to see a renovation of a government establishment, they say 5 billion to renovate. And then you're going to ask a question. Who are the people renovating these structures? Are they renovating Nigeria?
What's the size of the structure?
What's the size of the structure in the first place? Because, or they want to build a bridge in Nigeria. The same bridge in China or in another part of the world may cost 2 billion. Only for the same bridge, the same length of bridge, to cost 17 billion in Nigeria. These are issues we should be talking about. And that is why part of the World Bank loan is targeting training individuals in what we call corporate governance. How to assess government capabilities, how to assess whether government is spending money or not. It's part of the package. But there's a problem. Like I told you, there's a political side of all things. Why the CBN is looking at the economic side.
Right.
The political side sometimes have more power than the economic arguments. Because if the politicians see a loophole, they will make it wider. They'll make it wider so that they can get these flows. And like I told you, it's free money. You get $2 billion. It is free money from the political perspective, but it is not free for the economy. We are going to pay back.
Right.
As we speak now, Nigeria is owing $80 billion to the international community. $80 billion.
And that's a loan that's serviced regularly.
That service regularly. As I speak to you, 1.6 trillion of our budget is going to pay to service loans, just to service. And then it is expanding. 80% of our GDP is on loan. The standard internationally for advanced countries is 3% of GDP, your loan. Our own is 18%. We are targeting 25%. We said because they said 25% is the red line. When you cross 25% of your GDP as loan, then it's a red line. But
spells doom, right?
It spells doom. But people don't, our economics is wrong. It is not, we should not be looking at the 25%. The 3% is the best measure. 3%. We are 18%. We are forgetting that there are different measures of debt to GDP ratio. We have debt to GDP ratio. We have revenue to GDP ratio. Now, the debt to GDP ratio is pegged at 3%. The revenue to GDP ratio is also a very viable measure. Our revenue is declining compared to the debt. So, because you cannot pay debt unless you generate income. So what you should be focusing on as a country is how to diversify our economy to generate more income, not to incur more debt. You are looking at it from the debt angle. We are not looking at it from the revenue angle. And so anytime you borrow, you are increasing your debt profile and you are increasing your credit risk. It will get to a point. It will get to a point where the world will be fed up with Nigeria and will refuse to give us further loans without giving us serious conditions. And so your credit worthiness is affected when your debt is high.
I'll
so
talk to you,
these are the
I'm
issues.
going to come to you about this whole
Yes,
revenue
these are the
thing now,
issues.
because
Yes.
just this week now we're hearing that NNPC had lost about $750 million in 2019
Yes.
to oil theft. That's, as a matter of
leakage.
fact, yes, it's indicative of a depletion in our revenue base.
Yes.
All right, that's just for oil. And sometimes we are told that some of these revenue-generating agencies of the federal government are not able to meet targets,
Yes.
even though once in a while we hear that the FRIS, for example,
yes.
is able to even surpass
the
projected,
targets, yes.
the projections and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But Bishop Igbasan, let's look at the open governance that Destiny just made an allusion to a while ago. Every now and then you see CSOs, I mean, civil society organizations coming up to clamor to say government has to be transparent, the members of the public have to, I mean, they need to gain access to vital information as far as government spending and the running of government are all concerned and so on and so forth. Are we doing better now? Because he also made an allusion to the Freedom of Information Act. Are we doing better today than we were a few years ago?
We are not doing well. I tell you that the government will only want you to know what they want you to know. Now, this Freedom of Information Act,
Right.
now, if you look at it from 2015 to date, you see that the information of government are not also free. I give you an example. When it was time for Honoré to be removed, the declaration of his asset and all the rest of the thing were brought out. But people demanded for about 2 or 3 ministers. And the same agency that make Honoré declaration of asset public denied the civil society organization of that information. Now you ask yourself the question. Now, if you can bring out the declaration of asset of an individual that you targeted, that is your enemy, that needs to be removed, and other persons demanded, okay, what is good for the goose is good for the gang. Oh yeah, you bring out the details of this. They denied. Up to today, those ministers are serving in this government, and their assets that people are questioning were not made public by that particular agency that brought Honoré as a declaration of asset and made it so public. What I feel is that maybe because it is not this government that signed the Freedom of Information Act, they felt that the information they want you to hear, even the ones you know that common sense tells you, they want to deny it. And it's very painful, because when the government is not transparent, then the masses themselves suffer, because these informations, there are so many things that we are supposed to be privy to. You remember there was a time in Lagos, someone was the governor of Lagos, and despite the Freedom of Information Act that was signed by the federal government, the government of Lagos gave an instruction that nobody should talk to journalists except the governor of the state permits them to speak to journalists. Now you now ask yourself a question: is Lagos State a different state from the Federal Republic of Nigeria? And when you go to anybody to ask an information, either journalists or any civil society, they tell you go and meet PS. Go and meet commissioner.
We also heard about cases where some state governments were as some people would say, hide under the guise of saying they had not domesticated the FOI Act in their respective states.
Yeah.
Could that have been a reason
it's
for
not,
that of
you
Lagos
see,
State?
you know, Nigerians, we have English for everything. And when we...
Maybe because we are an English-speaking country.
Yes, we have English for everything. And that is not helping us, because if the democracy is the government of the people,
right,
and the people ought to know, as I said before, I said, if we want to talk about transparency and anti-corruption in Nigeria, we're supposed to be publishing security vote of every governor,
right,
every state, just the way Mr. Gaius Obaseki used to publish the fuel during the fuel scarcity. They will bring every where they deposit. Yes, GMB of NPC. Right. And he said the best way to do it is that total wire road is having so liters. The total Ikoba slope is having so liters. So go there, you see it being rolled on television on daily basis. So you can't go to somewhere and say, they didn't drop fuel for us today. You ask the person that they show it on television that this is how many liters you have, and it helps us then in Edo State here to be able to monitor the movement of fuel. Now, if the government themselves, they are not sincere, they hide a lot of information. Now, all these aids that are coming, if we want to be truthful with it, we make it so public and put it on our website, let everybody have access to the information of how much is coming from so place. This is what we are using it to do, and these are the people that bidded for this contract. This is the amount it was given out. This is the time they need to come back and hand over this project. A lot of projects, even in NDDC, people collect money and they didn't even know the site. People that collected the money for contract, they don't even know the site where they're going to work, and 50% have been paid. Now you ask yourself question. Now, if the people in that community knew that there is a money paid for covert,
right,
and this is Mr. F, who is the contractor, this is the consultant, the money, social amount have been given to them, and between the community, let there be some persons who will monitor the quality control of whatever is being used for that project. Now, if they don't deliver, community, see the man, look at how much it has been given. Then you know that the government themselves is transparent. But when money comes in, I want to give a contract out, I look for somebody who's my relation, and I say, okay, this is 10 billion, you take 3 billion, and whatever you do with that one, take loan, do whatever you pay staff, and whatever you get there, it's not an issue. And we end it up like that. Even auditors, I know where auditors are sent to a place, and they were pursued to run out of that place, because the people that are involved said, if you love your life, get out of here. You are not coming to audit anything.
So apparently they had something to hide.
Yeah, they had. And those people have to run for their life when they receive threat on phone. So when are we going to grow? Because some persons believe that this aid must continue to come till Jesus return, and they will be making money from that. And they created a platform so that they won't account for it. And I think it is a deliberate act. If the government is sincere, they should be able to tell us this is the amount we received from so place. It was meant for so purpose, and they should make the information free. Okay. But maybe because they are not the one that signed the Freedom of Information Act, they brought the issue of House of Assembly have not domesticated it. So if you come for information, well, once it's about the people is the primary thing in democracy. So the people have power to recall a serving member. The people have power to protest. But if you look at all these areas I'm talking about now, you see that gradually the issue of protest, you can't protest here, you can't protest here. And what is the beauty of democracy? In as much you protest, and the police protect you from other people hijacking
and
it.
It's violence free.
Yeah, it's violence free. Now, these are areas you can air your view. Even as I'm talking here now, if I say something now, you come back and say, this opinion is Igbasan's opinion. Right. Was it like that before? It wasn't like that before. It was an arrangement to make sure information does not flow.
But don't we also need to take responsibility for our opinions?
Yeah, that is the essence of democracy.
I'm going to come back to you definitely.
That's the essence of democracy.
Talk about that essence a little more. But let's also allow you space to weigh in on this conversation we're having about foreign aid, the Nigerian narrative on TMI here on ITV. We'll put up a number and a Twitter handle for you on the screen in a minute, so you can make your contributions. Please be civil. Stay with the issues, stay on the issues. Don't cast aspersion, don't sling mud in the course of this discussion. We just want to stay on the issues as far as foreign aid is concerned. Destiny, let's talk quickly about receiving aid.
Yes.
Are there countries that have real time become better on account of receiving aid?
Yes, many countries. Many countries. Argentina was undergoing a lot of crisis in the 80s.
Okay.
They were assisted with AIDS. Brazil and other countries, a lot of AIDS. AIDS, we must get it clear. Accepting AIDS is not a problem. That is not the problem. AIDS is based on the idea that you do not have enough to solve your problems.
Okay. And you can use some help.
You can use some help. That's what it is. So we should leave it at that. But being AIDS dependent is a problem. That's where the problem comes now. Now, the country of Nigeria stature with over 36 pure natural resources, we are able to exploit our capabilities. That's the problem. So when you are giving aid, one would observe what the aid should be to increase capacity. Increase capacity. So over time, in the next 20, 30 years, Nigeria will become a hub and then even give other countries aid. But when this aid is used for humanitarian activities, things that are basic, that not generate income in the future, then the country will depend on the aid. And like I told you, aid is active. Some products you them, leave them, but aid encourages you to take more. If you borrow easily, it gets to a point you start seeing borrowing as a venture. We call it people like that debt entrepreneurs. You begin to see the business of debt. Debt becomes a business. I'm afraid that the Nigerian government made business out of borrowing and getting aid. Because have you noticed that every 6 months now, they will write to World Bank, come and finance this thing, come and finance this. Just 2 years ago, World Bank gave us 2.4 billion. Now, 2.2 billion. The total World Bank loan, only World Bank loan to Nigeria is 9.8 billion as we speak.
In dollars?
In dollars. 9.8 billion. The GDP of Edo State is 11 billion. So we are mortgaging, GDP of my state is 11 billion. The country is owing 9.8 billion. That means that is the worth of a state, the income of a state in 36 states. It's not sustainable. What we should be doing is using that aid to finance developmental activities. And I like what he said. There was something he talked about. You see, aid should be used to finance capacity.
Okay.
Capacity. That's what it should be used to finance. Not consumption. Those things that we want to do, not feeding people. You don't solve people's poverty by giving them food. You solve their poverty in the long term by creating capacities for them to generate income.
So how do we situate the argument that any country that's prospering today has conquered hunger?
Yes, they conquered hunger. That's the basic, that's the first level of life.
Because you said you cannot improve people really by giving them food, but they say you have to conquer hunger to be able to record.
You can only give them food in the short
tangible
run.
Development.
In the short run.
Short run, okay.
In the short run. So if somebody comes to your house and says, I need food, it's okay to give the person food. But if the person comes tomorrow and says, I need food, you give the person food again. By the time you give the person up to the 5th time, it becomes stupid. Somebody would have asked a question, why are you always hungry?
So let's deal with the
So
underlying
the first time is okay, second time is okay, the third time, okay, come. You should be having the conversation. Every morning you're always hungry, so why? Then the person may tell you, because I don't have a job. Yeah. And then you can say, okay, work here. Okay. That's how to solve it. So giving people food is solving the problem in the short run. In the long run, it gets to a point, if you keep giving the person food, the person may become very strategic in begging. Okay. Oh, if I go there early in the morning, he tends to be in the good mood around 8. I've noticed that anytime I go around 9, he's stingy, but around 8, he gives me food. You become food entrepreneur. Okay. And you become very, very good at begging. That's what I'm talking about. The same thing with borrowing. When you borrow, you notice that if you fill some documents and say, we are going to do this, that, they normally write
oblige you.
And they oblige you. They read your document and say, wow, good. They send you 2 billion. Say, it worked last time. So it will work again. So this time we want to remove 100 million out of poverty. We're going to invest in healthcare, this. When you write it, the white man says, yes, good. You give the money again. You become a debt entrepreneur. And then the money comes in, you do something you like. Yeah. So that is what we are getting into now. What I fear is the pattern. The pattern of debt.
There's a pattern to it.
Yes, a pattern. It's becoming it's not a cure to a high. The need for a high. We are high. So we want money to cure. It doesn't cure the problem. Why are we borrowing? Why do we need aid? Because we don't have enough income. Why don't we have enough income? Because our economy is monoproduct, only oil dependent. Yeah. What happened to other minerals? What happened to human capital? What happened to technology? What happened to education? What happened to agriculture? Why are we ignoring all that? What have we not? What is happening in that area? That is where the work is. And to the extent we take loans to solve that problem, the lower the chance of poverty in the future. But when the loans are used to feed politicians and some people who control these loans, then we are simply postponing the evil day. Because like I told you, the debt is already increasing, 80 billion. 15 years ago, they forgave us debt. Now it has accumulated again to 80 billion. The trend, if you look at it, in the next 10 years, it may be 200 billion.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have 300 million people to feed, you owe 200 billion, and then you are back to square one, the same square one, the drawing table we are used to. So, in fact, what we need a law to prevent us from borrowing.
Do we have the willpower to make that move? It's a big one, isn't it?
And that's why I say it's a political decision. Sometimes politics trumps the economics. The common sense of it says, stop borrowing and look for more creative ways. In fact, borrowing is a lack of creativity. If Nigeria had creative ways of generating income, if you think within the space, as I speak to you, now there are many ways we can generate income in this country in a creative way, but it takes a long process. We like the easy approach. The easy approach is, okay, that's where the money is. Like I told you, if you throw $1 million to a monkey and you throw a bunch of bananas, the monkeys will run after the bananas, not knowing that $1 million can buy a forest of bananas. So it's the same thing. The easy approach, the one that
and there's a mentality to it.
There's a mentality to it. As the banana, we see banana, we don't see beyond the banana. The aid is a banana. Beyond it is another problem, which the Nigeria has not been trained to see. And so government borrows because we should borrow. The economy says we should borrow. But why are we borrowing? That's a bigger question. If we tackle that problem, we will see that borrowing is not the solution to our problems.
I'm going to ask you one more question now before I return to Bishop Igbasa. There has to be some mechanism for monitoring this whole aid thing.
Yes.
I mean, the way it's spent. That's number one. Number two is, a lot of persons are now saying that we are beginning to disguise borrowing and using the term aid. Because aid gives an impression it's free money, it's free lunch money. Bishop Igbasa can have free lunch money, Destiny can have free lunch money. But economists who follow these issues are telling you, look, you had better open your eyes. This is not free money.
It's not free money.
They may be calling it aid, but you are borrowing, you are indebted.
Yes.
So how do we reconcile all of this?
It's a loan. It's just concessionary. I think the choice of using the World Bank is because the World Bank is a specialist in long-term finance.
Okay.
So they can give you $20 billion.
So the pressure is minimal?
Pressure is minimal.
Okay.
Give you $20 billion at 2% interest rate. So the interest rate is concessionary and it's long-term. So it gives you the impression that I can borrow today and not pay for the next 20 years. You will still pay. It's still a debt. You will pay. So it is not the word aid. The concept of aid is different. Technically, you can give aid to a country to solve tuberculosis problem. It can be a form of dash. But these ones we are talking about that is increasing our debt profile is a loan. The right word to use is loan. They lend us this money, but it's cheap.
We are under obligation to pay back.
To pay back, yes, it's a loan. We must leave it like that. We are under obligation to pay back. Whether you pay back or not, your profile increases. We have what we call credit worthiness.
Right.
Something else. When your debt is high, you cannot, even the value of your assets reduces because of your debt profile. Some countries are AA+, some countries are AB+.
In terms of the ranking.
In terms of ranking. So apart from whether you spend the money or not, when your debt is high, it's a problem. People begin to see you as a risk. And you cannot function very well in a world that is based on credit. The world is a credit world. Every country borrows here and there. And so if your debt is too high, you become at a negative advantage there. Because some investors will not come and put money in your bonds because your debt is high. They fear that you'll not be able to pay. Your interest rate goes up. The more debt you have, the more your risk goes up. So if your interest rate, when you want to borrow from any other body, the interest rate will be very high because they believe that you may not be able to pay. So there are issues. It's not just about the borrowing and what we do with it. It's about what it means to you as a country, the image you project when you are aid dependent. You are a borrowing country. When other countries are doing creditor countries, we have the Paris Club. It's a group of countries who donate money to give to other countries. Why don't we have the Nigerian African Club, where we put money and then somebody from Germany will come and borrow? Why can't we think like that? Nigeria and some countries in Africa, we have a fund, we keep money, and then when somebody comes from Australia, we say, go and develop yourself. Why is it the white man, the Paris Club, the London Club, the World Bank, why are they always having money to give to us? When will we have money to give to another person? You see, you cannot be dependent forever. If you have a baby who is always crying for food at age 2, you give the baby food. At age 6, you give the person food. Age 7, food. Age 10, food. Age 15, food. The child is always crying. He doesn't want to go to primary school, no secondary school. He doesn't want to dress. What is that a child? You expect people to
we need
grow.
to find a definition for that. Right,
Yes,
correct?
you are not growing.
But let me talk to Bishop Ikosan quickly. He mentioned politics, for example. They say politics and economics must go together at some point. But people also say that in Nigeria we over-politic, and that negatively affects our policies, affects our economics, affects the way we plan, and then also minimizes innovation drastically. Do you share that thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. The mindset, if you look at former President Olusegun Obasanjo, fought vehemently, appealed until our debt was wiped off.
Right.
And if you look at it between that time and now, you heard what my brother said here about the level at which we have found ourselves. You see, when politicians or leaders are not thinking straight, that everything is about politics. Now, at least we have somebody who said, let us wipe this debt. And people saw reason. And they agreed with him, and the debt was wiped. But today, we are back to that. We have another set of people who believe that we don't even need to wipe it. We must be accumulating and keep on accumulating debt. If we want to sneeze, we must borrow to sneeze. If we want to cough, we must borrow to cough. And I think that until our political leaders, and up to today, they are still defending our borrowing, that we are borrowing. This borrowing is the best for us. We are capital city of the poor person in the whole world. They say it's not an issue. We should keep on borrowing. Now, what I think, to me, you can't remove politics from the issue of economy.
Right.
Now, it depends on, I just share about former President Olusegun Obasanjo. What was he thinking when he worked and made sure the debt was wiped up? It was a mindset. What was the mindset of former President Olusegun Obasanjo by setting up ICPC, EFCC? It was a mindset. It was a mindset that, this country, we must make sure that corruption must be dealt with, and everybody must account. There must not be money laundering and all the rest of them. Now, what happens after the exit of the man? What has happened to this innovative and this mindset of the man? The mindset that makes the man to be able to work and make sure our debt was wiped away. Now, some other person have mindset of, why don't we continue to accumulate, even though the money is going through the back door and there are leakages here and there? And what I want to say is that we have a lot of things now that we can even ask them to help us. Number one, we can decide that as a country that doesn't want to be a babysitting country. Now, please, America, we want you to help us. What we want to do is that our medical students, we want 5,000 medical students to go and study in America. We want you to help us invest in medical science. Right. We want 5,000 medical students in Nigeria to be sent abroad, that you help us train them and return them. That is what we want us to borrow us. We want to have 5,000 pilots. Let them be trained in America, and you send them back to us. Let those ones be what you are borrowing to us. Now take some of our boys who are surveyors. Take them to your country, train them for these are the numbers. Israel, we want you to help us train some people on cyber security and what have you. Now, these are aids we want. Don't give us money. Don't help us tar road. Okay, we have mineral resources in Nigeria. We want to develop them. We don't want to depend on oil. We have limestone. We have other things in other places. There's a village in Osun State that they mine gold there, raw gold, and that village did not have a bridge. This colonial Old Testament bridge is what leads to that community. And when you go to that community, you see Chinese people, they are mining gold. Who do they report to? Who are they paying to? Go to Zamfara. And these things are not regulated, yet we have Ministry of Solid Mineral. Now, what we need to do is that, we want you to help us develop this area. We have a lot of resources. Don't give us money. Bring your expertise. Let us give you our own people. Develop them in this area. Let this particular mineral resources be mine. In Edo State here, we have pineapple. Those who come to buy pineapple, they are building houses in the north. The people that are planting the pineapple, they are living in a mud house. Go to how you see trailer parked. Now, there was a time a governor in this state set up a fruit juice something.
Processing plant.
Processing plant. What happened after that tenure? If other government has come on board and believe in that processing, I tell you today, all those pineapple that are wasted in a hole and the rest of them, there will have been money given to the farmers there to acquire more land and raise and plant pineapple. And there will not be waste there because the fruit juice will have been very, very productive in that place. What is happening is that I think it's a calculated attempt by the politicians to make sure that the economy doesn't work. Number one, when people are poor, they are at your beck and call. You can say any protest you want to do now. Just give some amount of money to youth. They are coming out to come and die for 1,000 naira. It's not an issue. Why? Because the level of the poverty is so high. And I want to say that the areas of aid, politicians don't want those things to work. That is their mindset. When it works, it makes the poor man independent-minded. What stop us now? We don't. Why are people running abroad? Because they see that there is no future. They've been able to look at it. You can't stop people from going. In my place, they say if you slap somebody, you can't stop the person from crying. If you are able to slap somebody, you must not stop the person from crying. You can't stop people from traveling abroad, either through land or whatever, no matter what you are doing, until people see that there is a hope, that you are putting some things on ground, not giving 10,000 to people that want to go to Libya. 10,000 will never solve. If somebody comes from Libya now, you are giving 10,000 monthly. It means nothing to such a person. There are things we can do that can empower such person. There are areas we can invest on. We have so many resources. All these countries that are borrowing on, how many resources do they have? Mineral resources that they have. But they make up their mind. Is it UK, where everything you do is taxed? And there's no mineral resources yet. Those countries, they raise great people. But today, even in our land, how many of the rich people are investing? We have rich people in Edo State. How many of them invested and said, oh, I'm going to take care of 50 medical students, 50 petrochemical engineering students. I will pay their bill and make sure that they are invested in medical science. And they sell it as a means of revenue generation. So if we want aid and we really talk about the future, we remember vividly the free education of Awolowo. We remember the people that came on board in this country, and the first thing they did was to stop the free education. And eventually some people dropped out who are children of the poor as at that time. And some persons today are in leadership, and they were product of free education of Awolowo at that time. But now, those people who does not make education to be affordable for the children of the poor. What I think is that politicians and economy, you can't separate them.
Right.
And they knew that when you use politics to control economy, it makes you a ruler. You are not a leader, but you become a ruler, because you'll be in the forefront and the people following you will be at the far back. No matter what you want to do in this country today, just throw 5,000 up in Ring Road. You'll be surprised that if you want somebody to help you kill your enemy, you don't need to pray about it. They will follow you. Why? Because people have gotten to a level of poverty, and they are seeing that where is the hope for tomorrow? Because those who are borrowing, they pass the money through the same end. Politicians use their office to control where they want the economy to go. Even if they have a special advisor on economy that is telling them what to do, they tell you, say, go and sit down. Your own is school. We have to use this power while we are here. When we are outside power, there's no
Okay, hope. Bishop Austin Igbasa, trying to help us make sense of all of these realities we're dealing with, especially in the area of foreign aid in Nigeria. Okay, Jones in Benin, you just sent in your contribution through SMS. You say, in as much as corruption has eaten down the heart of our leaders in Nigeria, foreign aid should be in the form of services. You say foreign countries should carry out the projects in which the funds were given by themselves in Nigeria. So that's a way of saying that those who are giving us foreign aid must be the ones also monitoring how this aid is deployed. That sends a bad signal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sends a bad signal. But that happened. That's a failure of the system. When somebody gives you aid and also monitors how you spend it, it's a sign that your institutions are weak. It's also a sign that your institutions are weak. You cannot be trusted. That's what it means. But that's also, in the short term, it is effective. Like I said again, the World Bank, when they give loans to Nigeria, should also monitor how it is spent so that they can get their money back. But what we would love to see is our institutions should be strengthened in a way that there should be checks and balances within the system to ensure that, because that is what will benefit us in the long run. Okay, the systems are not only just there for World Bank loans, they are there for financial transparency, for our budgets, for everything that we do. Right. So it is in our best interest to strengthen our institutions so that even when loans come in through that same institution, it is properly deployed. But in the interim, his argument is great. World Bank, if they don't trust the Nigerian government to spend the resources, monitor them. But that is not the long them solutions.
Okay, I think that's where we're going to leave this conversation this morning, everyone. I want to thank especially Destiny Awobu, brilliant economist and statistician, for coming to join us here. And then, of course, Bishop Austin Igbasa, as always, articulates and very fairy here for coming to join us as well to help create context for this discussion about foreign aid to Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. We do appreciate it. We'll take a quick break now. We'll bring you a few other segments of the program shortly. Stay with us.